Hello, Planeswalkers. This is Eric from Bane Alley Magic, bringing you another weekly deck tech video, and today we're talking about my demonic Kaalia of the Vast deck. But before we do, I'd just like to remind you to please hit that like button or maybe that subscribe button. It helps out a lot. So, as you may well already know, Kaalia of the Vast is a 2/2 human cleric for 1, a white, a black, and a red. That's Mardu colors. She's a legendary flyer, and whenever Kaalia of the Vast attacks an opponent, you may put an angel, demon, or dragon creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking that opponent. So it doesn't work if she's attacking a planeswalker. Kaalia is important to me because she was my first functional commander deck. I say functional because the first deck I built, I hardly won any games. Not very surprising since it was my first deck. It was an Aetherios God of Passage deck. And now that I have more experience, I'm sure I could build another Aetherios deck that's actually good, and if that happens, I'll be sure to load it up here. So Kaalia was my next commander. This was the first commander deck where I pulled out all the tricks I had to make the most broken deck possible without being some kind of, infinite combo nonsense. And it worked. Obviously, it's game-changing when just for attacking with a 4-drop creature, you get to put on the battlefield 1 out of 3 of the most powerful flying creature types and get to attack with it immediately. Now, Kaalia, any Kaalia player will tell you that she is one of the most feared commanders in the game, and rightfully so. She hits the opponents with loads of flying damage, and she can even lock some opponents out completely with cards like Iona, Shield of Emeria. Knowing this, your opponents will often make a pact against you before the game even begins. You're the player, no one is going to feel lousy about attacking because they know when you attack back, it's going to hurt real bad. So don't get mad, get even. That's the feeling every Kaalia player has as they're building their deck. They read the flavor text. I'll have my revenge if I have to call on every force from above and below. As always, my Kaalia deck is an aggro deck, focused on protecting Kaalia from hate and smashing faces as hard as possible. I used to run the typical slew of Kaalia creatures like Iona, Angel of Despair, Balefire Dragon, Hellkite Tyrant, Linvala, and the like, but recently the WizKids printed a card that inspired me to give my Kaalia deck a demonic twist, and that card is Liliana's Contract. Now, there are a few demon synergies in the deck, but for the most part, I just run a lot of demons, so I'd call the deck more demon-themed than demon-tribal. Besides Kaalia, the deck has 26 creatures, 21 of which are demons, and there are also 2 non-creature cards that can transform into demons. You may say that 23 demons is a little low, but as an experienced Kaalia player, I know that I need to leave room for spells to protect her and our team, and I also need to have lots of room for ramp and draw card spells. The only card I'm missing for the deck at the moment is Smothering Tithe. I've ordered it. Unfortunately, I'm still waiting for it to arrive. So, let's just get into the deck, starting with the creatures. So, our first demon is Kothafeed, Soul Hoarder, 4 and 2 black for a 6/6 flying demon. And he says, whenever a permanent owned by another player is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Paying 1 life is never a bad deal for drawing cards in Commander. Our next legendary demon is Demon Lord Belzenlock, which is 4 and 2 black for a 6/6 Elder Demon with flying and trample. And when Demon Lord Belzenlock enters the battlefield, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. then put that card into your hand. If the card's converted mana cost is 4 or greater, repeat this process. Demon Lord Belzenlock deals 1 damage to you for each card put into your hand this way. Again, 1 damage for drawing a card is never a bad deal in a format where you start with 40 life. Next we have Rakdos the Showstopper. 4, a black and a red for a 6/6 flying trample demon, and when Rakdos the Showstopper enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp, and destroy each creature whose coin comes up tails. Really cool creature, definitely synergizes with demons. You know, could possibly kill Kaalia. We do have a few ways to protect Kaalia. Also, you know, if we have several demons out, you know, we don't mind losing Kaalia because we're pretty much winning the game just by smashing face with huge demons at that point. Sometimes we have Kaalia on the battlefield and we have no demons in our hand anyway, and so, you know, we don't mind losing her sometimes. Most of the time we definitely want to keep Kaalia out, that being said. But this is our first of the sort of demon synergies. I had to put it in the deck. You know, I love the card, the new card from the Ravnica Allegiance set. Very cool. Entertain me. Oh yeah, also if you're coming across an opponent that's got like, 20 tokens, one thing you can do is roll dice instead of flipping coins. So, instead of flipping a coin 20 times, if your opponent has 20 soldier tokens or whatever, you just roll 20 six-sided dice, and for each one that comes up 4, 5, or 6, you kill the creature, for example. That's how you deal with big boards. Next we have Razaketh the Foul-Blooded, 5 and 3 black for an 8/8 legendary demon with flying and trample. And you can pay 2 life, sacrifice another creature, and search your library for a card and put that card into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So we got a demonic tutor on wheels here. Totally awesome. And if you haven't noticed, we just went through at least 3 of the 4 original demons of the Liliana's contract. I don't think Rakdos was a part of it, but yeah, Razaketh, Kothafed, and Demon Lord Belzenlock. Unfortunately, the 4th one is banned in Commander, and that is, really a shame. I think they should definitely make another card for that guy. I mean, I don't even play him, so I can't even remember his silly name, but he's a really powerful demon, and so they should just definitely print another version of that card. I just want to complain about it right now, so let me just look it up, because it's kind of surprising me. Yeah, Grizzlebrand. You pay 7 life. Let's just take a look here. Grizzlebrand, 4 and 4 black, 7/7 flying lifelink, pay 7 life, draw 7 cards. Yeah, super broken in Commander. Obviously a worthy of being banned in Commander, but they should print a new version of it. There's only one Grizzlebrand in the whole game now. They should print another Grizzlebrand, definitely. Sorry. Anyway, let's continue with more creatures. Or not. Let's talk about equipment that turns into creatures. So Elbrus, the Binding Blade, is 7 mana for a legendary artifact equipment that has equip 1. So you can't cheat this out with Kaalia, unfortunately. You have to hard cast this. When the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you unattach Elbrus, the Binding Blade, and then transform it. And in a deck full of flying creatures, that's not really hard to do, deal combat damage to a player. And it transforms into Withengar Unbound, a 13/13 legendary demon with flying, intimidate, and trample, so it can't be blocked except for by black creatures and by artifact creatures. And whenever a player loses the game, you put 13 +1/+1 counters on Withengar Unbound. So in a normal 4-player game, he has the potential of becoming up to a 36/36 flying, intimidate, trample, which is really busted. Imagine if you're playing like a 6-player game and he became like a, I don't know, just huge, 5 people died. That'd be ridiculous. Next we have Westvale Abbey, a land that taps for 1 colorless mana, or you can pay 5 and tap it and pay 1 life, and you put a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature token onto the battlefield. Or you can pay 5 and tap it and sacrifice 5 creatures, and then you transform Westvale Abbey and untap it. So it transforms into Ormendal, Profane Prince, a 9/7 flying, lifelink, indestructible, haste. Yeah, the greatest group of abilities there. Just so powerful, really great. And a nice little sack outlet, nice little ramp outlet. Most of all, just a great flying 9/7 demon. Next we have Indulgent Tormentor. Indulgent Tormentor. 3 and 2 black for a 5/3 flying demon. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card unless target opponent sacrifices a creature or pays 3 life. Yeah, so often your opponent is going to pay the 3 life, all the time. And so one thing you can do with this card, I'd say, is play the politics and just tell them, because whenever they pay the 3 life, they're like, oh, they're always groaning about it, and it's funny. They just feel so obligated to do it, but they always groan about it. So as soon as they groan, just remember to say, well, you don't have to pay the life. You could just let me draw a card, just throw it out there, because it's definitely a politics game when it comes to cards that give your opponents the choices. They're often going to make the choice that doesn't benefit you. So you got to play the politics here when you got this guy out. Next we have Rakdos the Defiler. 2 black and 2 red for a 7/6 demon with flying and trample, and whenever Rakdos the Defiler attacks, sacrifice half the non-demon permanents you control rounded up. Whenever Rakdos deals combat damage to a player, that player sacrifices half the non-demon permanents he or she controls rounded up. So what's really fabulous about Kaalia of the Vast and Rakdos the Defiler is that when Kaalia of the Vast brings angel, demon, or dragon onto the battlefield, it enters the battlefield after you've declared attackers, and technically a creature has Rakdos the Defiler, his effect happens to you and makes you sacrifice half your non-demon permanents when you declare him as an attacker, not when he just enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. So Kaalia of the Vast gets around the negative side of Rakdos the Defiler for one combat step. Unfortunately, after that, unless you can somehow get him back to your hand, you'll have to sacrifice half your non-demon permanents, which, you always have lands to sacrifice, so that's unfortunate. So after he gets out the first time, often I just keep him back as a blocker. But, if I have a board full of demons, then it's no big deal, especially because the defending player has to sacrifice half of their non-demon permanents rounded up too. It's a really great one-sided board wipe when we're playing the demon theme. Next we got Rakdos, Lord of Riots. 2 black and 2 red for a 6/6 flying demon with flying and trample. You can't cast Rakdos, Lord of Riots, unless an opponent lost life this turn. And it says creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. So if you can get, number 1, you're not casting Rakdos when you cheat him out with Kaalia of the Vast, so she also gets around his downside. And then if you just think about it, if Kaalia and Rakdos both connect, that's 8 damage your opponent has taken. So that means each other creature spell you cast for the rest of the turn is 8 colorless mana less to cast. So basically all you have to pay is the colored mana for all of your other demons for the rest of the turn. So Rakdos is a really cool sort of ramp demon. A great choice as a commander as well. Next we have Butcher of the Horde, which is a 5/4 flying demon for 1 and a red, white, and black. And it says you can sacrifice another creature, and Butcher of the Horde gains your choice of flying, vigilance, lifelink, or haste until the end of the turn. You might have noticed I have sort of slight dyslexia that just comes through in my reading, but whatever, I'm going to keep going, and I don't care what people think. So it's really great to have a sacrifice outlet in every single deck, and so Butcher of the Horde is really not so bad, considering you can just hard cast them really cheap and just have a great sacrifice outlet, which is going to prevent your opponents from gaining control of your creatures, from exiling your creatures, from enchanting your creatures. So I think Butcher of the Horde is a pretty sweet choice as a sack outlet in any Mardu deck, actually. Next we have Rune Scarred Demon, 5 and 2 black for a 6/6 flying demon. And when Rudenscarred Demon enters the battlefield, you search your library for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So you get to Demonic Tutor any card you want into your hand. Don't gotta reveal it to anybody. Next we got Harvester of Souls, 4 and 2 black for a 5/5 Death Touch Demon, and whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. Pretty sweet, even your opponent's creatures. Gotta draw them cards. Same with Blood Gift Demon. It's 3 and 2 black for a 5/4 with flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, target player draws a card and loses 1 life, which is pretty much always going to be you, unless someone's maybe at 1 life and you want to kill them. Love the artwork. Next is Doom Whisperer. 3 and 2 black for a 6/6 flying trample nightmare demon, and it says you can pay 2 life and surveil 2. So you can look at the top 2 cards of your library and put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest on top of your library in any order. Next we have Overseer of the Damned, 5 and 2 black for a 5/5 flying demon, and when Overseer of the Damned enters the battlefield, you may destroy target creature. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, you put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped. So you can get a little army of zombies. This happens right when he enters the battlefield, not when you cast him, so it will work with Kaalia of the Vast. Next, we have Sire of Insanity, 4, a black and a red for a 6/4 demon, and it says, at the beginning of each end step, every player discards their entire hand. Yes, why would I put this in my deck, you might say? Well, if you know, Sire of Insanity will actually win you games very often, as long as you got the better board state. That's what's really cool about it. If you have a little army of demons, I mean, maybe even just 3 or 4 other demons with Kaalia of the Vast, you put out Sire of Insanity, and suddenly your board is protected. It's just really great against control players, against people with tons of removal, against pretty much every single deck. Everyone's going to hate you, of course. So when I play cards like this, you know, I kind of like to soften it up by saying, oh, well, hopefully this is just going to win me the game, you know, and then people kind of understand, you know, you're playing this because you're trying to, you know, win the game with this card and trying to end the game as quickly as possible. And so give people the notion, you know, but you don't have to, you know, whatever. But yeah, making everyone discard their hand, even you, isn't bad when you have the better board state. So this card actually is one of my win conditions in the deck. If you can get this out when you're ahead, you have a very good chance of just winning the game. Next we have Lord of the Void, 4 and 3 black for a 7/7 flying demon, and whenever Lord of the Void deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 7 cards of that player's library, then put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield under your control. So Lord of the Void is often my first choice. If I got a bunch of demons in my hand, I will pick Lord of the Void because it's going to net me another creature, and it's one of my opponent's creatures, which is always fun. So just a really big, really cool artwork, very functional creature. It's always going to get us an extra creature, and cheating it out with Kaalia of the Vast is just nuts. Next we have Master of Cruelties, a 1/4 first strike death touch for 3, a black and a red. And Master of Cruelties can only attack alone, and whenever Master of Cruelties attacks a player and isn't blocked, that player's life total becomes 1. Master of Cruelties assigns no combat damage this combat. So if Master of Cruelties attacks alone and he's not blocked, the defending player's life total just becomes 1 before any other creatures are able to deal damage. So when you cheat out Master of Cruelties with Kaalia of the Vast, you get around his downside of only being able to attack alone. Also, since Master of Cruelties has first strike, he's going to reduce the opponent's life total to 1 before Kaalia of the Vast deals her combat damage. So this is a one-hit kill combo right here. If you cheat out Master of Cruelties and Kaalia of the Vast, and they're both able to get through unblocked, then you reduce the opponent's life total to 1, and then Kaalia of the Vast finishes them off with regular combat damage, which is 2. Pretty cool, pretty cruel. Next we have Archfiend of Depravity, 3 and 2 black for a 5/4 flying demon. And at the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player chooses up to 2 creatures he or she controls and then sacrifices the rest. Really great against token decks or against any decks that are trying to go wide. Absolutely. Next we have Spawn of Mayhem, 2 and 2 black for a 4/4 demon, which has Spectacle 3, so you can pay 1 and 2 black to cast this spell rather than pay its normal mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. So this 4/4 flying trample says, at the beginning of your upkeep, Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player. Then if you have 10 or less life, you put a +1/+1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem. So this is also really great if you're trying to build a Rakdos Lord of Riots deck, you know, where you need things that force the opponents to lose life. He does deal 1 damage to each player, including you, but still, that's going to let you cast Rakdos Lord of Riots and make each of your creatures 3 less to cast for the rest of the turn if you cast Rakdos Lord of Riots on that turn. Next, we got Ob Nixilis Unshackled, 4 and 2 black for a 4/4 flying trample demon. And whenever an opponent searches his or her library, that player sacrifices a creature and loses 10 life. Whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Ob Nixilis. So this goes off even if your opponent is like cracking their Evolving Wilds or their fetch land. You know, if they're searching their library, they gotta sack a creature and lose 10 life. Really powerful demon. Next we have Dread Cacodemon, which is an 8/8 demon. And when Dread Cacodemon enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, you destroy all creatures your opponents control, then tap all other creatures you control. So again, unfortunately, this is not going to work if you cheat it out with Kaalia of the Vast. But what's great is it's a one-sided board wipe that leaves you with an 8/8 creature on top of all your creatures. So obviously you want to cast this on your second main phase so you get in all your attacks, you know, and then you just cast this and board wipe all your opponent's creatures. Really cool. Definitely an essential card for any demon deck. Next we have Krav, the Unredeemed, 4 and a black for a 3/3 legendary demon that partners with Regna the Redeemer. So when this creature enters the battlefield, target player may put Regna into their hand from their library, then shuffle. And you can pay a black and sacrifice X creatures, and target player draws X cards and gains X life, and you put X +1/+1 counters on Krav the Unredeemed. So this is a demon that can get huge. It's a demon that tutors up another angel. Both the demon and the angel can be cast from your hand for free with Kaalia. Not cast, but, you know, cheated out with Kaalia. And, you know, Krav is just a great sacrifice outlet as well. It's going to gain you life, draw you cards, get huge. I mean, these two do so much. So this brings us into our non-demon creatures. That's right, we got a few non-demon creatures. I mean, we're playing Kaalia. You have to play a few of these creatures. They're just so powerful. So, Regna the Redeemer is 5 and a white for a 4/4 angel that partners with Krav the Unredeemed. So again, when you cast this, you get to, or just when this enters the battlefield, excuse me, you get to search your library for Krav and put it into your hand. So just great little card advantage there. And it's a 4/4 flying angel, and at the beginning of each end step, if your team gained life this turn, you create 2 1/1 white warrior creature tokens. So you're getting little creatures that you can sacrifice the Krav to gain more life, and put +1/+1 counters on them and draw cards. And since you gained life, you're going to make more 2/2 white warriors. So they synergize with each other quite nicely. And by the way, both of these can be your commander, and you can build an angel demon deck based around Regna and Krav. That'd be pretty sweet. I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to. Next on our non-demon creatures, we have Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, 4 a red and 2 white for a legendary angel. That's a 5/5 with flying and first strike. And she says, if a source would deal damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. If a source would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, you prevent half that damage rounded up. So, for example, let's say a 1/1 creature attacked you. So that creature would normally deal 1 damage to you, so you're going to prevent half of 1
rounded up, which is 1, which means you're going to prevent all instances of 1 damage that are going to be dealt to you. It's a little confusing because some players think that the amount that's halved and rounded up is the amount of damage that's dealt to you, but remember, it's the amount of damage that's prevented, which is being halved and rounded up. So again, if it's only 1 damage, that's going to be completely prevented because 1 halved rounded up is 1. And if it was like, say, 6 damage being dealt to you or one of your creatures, that would be reduced to 3. Really great, powerful, a great way to end games. Another one of our game-winning creatures, just a bomb that will absolutely win you the game if it's not unchecked. And by the way, Kaalia gets it out attacking right away. There's nothing better than a Gazella that gets to attack right away, because normally these creatures aren't going to last 1 round around the table. People are going to see these things and be like, kill it all, kill them all right now, right? But thankfully Kaalia gets you that attack right away. That extra attack is so powerful. Next we have Aurelia, the war leader, 2 red and 2 white for a 3/4 angel, which has flying, vigilance, and haste. And whenever Aurelia, the war leader, attacks for the first time each turn, you untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Really important thing to remember is that if you cheat Aurelia out with Kaalia, that's not going to happen on that turn. All right, because she has to attack, meaning you have to declare her as an attacker, which Kaalia gets around the declaration of attackers. So Aurelia's ability won't work unless you hardcast her, which I really suggest you do. Even the downside, I don't even care that you can't hardcast Aurelia with Kaalia. She's not that expensive to cast. Her ability is so good. Kaalia's gonna get you out another creature, and then she's gonna, on your next phase, she's gonna get out another creature, right? So you hardcast Aurelia, you get something else out like Gazella with Kaalia, and then you get something else out on your extra combat phase like Krav, and then you get to tutor up Ragnar the Redeemer. Just one example of some chains you could pull off there. But I just really love Aurelia the War Leader and Gazella Blade of Gold Knight in pretty much every single Boros deck. Any deck with red-white, put these cards in it. They are fabulous and are going to win you games. Next we have Avacyn, Angel of Hope, 5 and 3 white for an 8/8 angel with flying and vigilance. And Avacyn, Angel of Hope, and other permanents you control are indestructible. Yeah, never a bad deal. Just be careful because people are going to try to exile her, of course. But we do have plenty of ways to protect our creatures, which we'll get to later. But yeah, definitely this is one that your opponents are going to hate on. Absolutely. It's going to win you games. Next is Steel Hellkite, 6 mana for a 5/5 flying dragon, our only dragon in the deck. You can pay 2 to give it +1/+0 till the end of the turn, or you can pay X to destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. So this is a board wipe on steroids. It is only going to hit permanents with 1 converted mana cost that are all owned by the same controller. But I mean, if you're playing someone with tokens, all you have to do is pay 0 and you destroy all of their tokens. Also, this is really essential for decks that are like mono black or Rakdos colors that don't have good enchantment removal. Get a Steel Hellkite for those decks. But it also just works really great with Kaalia because we get to cheat it out. And next is our non-creature spells, starting with Liliana's Contract. So again, this is sort of the main idea of the deck. The fun idea to win with the deck is to win with Liliana's Contract. So 3 and 2 black for an enchantment that says, when Liliana's Contract enters the battlefield, you draw 4 cards and lose 4 life. Again, not a bad deal to pay 4 life just to draw 4 cards, so a great draw card spell all by itself. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 or more demons with different names, you win the game. Yeah, so that's how we want to win the game. We just want to get at least 4 demons out and just go through our upkeep with Liliana's Contract, and we just win the game. So that is what inspired me to build the demonic Kaalia of the Vast deck. So I haven't been able to pull it off yet, But it doesn't matter because we have so many other win conditions in the deck, because we have so many bombs that we get to cheat out for free, that, you know, we don't need to win with Liliana's contract, but we can still be a really cool demon-themed deck without winning with Liliana's contract. You know, we can just win by killing with demons. It's not that hard. Alright, so continuing. Next we got Phyrexian Arena, 1 and 2 black for an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Really great draw a card spell, goes in pretty much every single black deck ever. If you don't have one, get one. Next we have Theater of Horrors, 1 a black and a red for an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, if an opponent lost life this turn, you may play exiled cards exiled with Theater of Horrors. And you can pay 3 and a red, and Theater of Horrors deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So this is actually a pretty cool card. I don't think it's as powerful as Phyrexian Arena, but it does kind of give you this extra hand to work with as long as your opponent lost life. Unfortunately, if they destroy Theater of Horrors, then you just lose those cards and they're just exiled forever. But I do think it is, you know, decent. As long as you already have a Phyrexian Arena, you can also run a Theater of Horrors, and that's not so bad. But, you know, if you have the choice just between the two, I'd take Phyrexian Arena every time. Next, we have Toil and Trouble. So the Toil half of Toil and Trouble says target player draws 2 cards and and loses 2 life. And Trouble says Trouble deals damage to target player equal to the number of cards in that player's hand. Toil is 2 and a black and Trouble is 2 and a red, and since this says fuse, you can actually cast both halves of this card if you pay both of those mana costs. So most of the time you can't do that. Wizards realized that that's just really powerful to be able to cast 2 spells. So unfortunately in the new set, you're not able to cast both halves of the spell, but with Toil and Trouble you can, and if someone just happens to have a ton of cards in their hand, this is going to deal a ton of damage to them. So really cool card that can draw you cards and kill an opponent at the same time. Next we got our ramp spells, which we've got quite a few because besides Kaalia, we're going to have to cast a lot of our demons, especially if someone is able to just kill Kaalia enough times. We'll have to start hard casting our demons. So we got Soul Ring, of course. Next we have Mind Stone, 2 mana for an artifact that taps for 1 colorless, or you can pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice it to draw a card. Next we have Boros Signet, 2 mana for an artifact. You can pay 1 and tap it to add both a red and white mana to your mana pool, so a little bit of mana fixing. Next we have Orzhov Signet, same thing, except it adds white and black to your mana pool. Next we have Rakdos Signet, same thing, except it adds white and red to your mana pool. Black and red to your mana pool. Next we have the Lockets. So Rakdos Locket, 3 mana for an artifact that taps to add black or red to your mana pool, or you can pay 4 hybrid black-red and tap it and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. So I really love the Lockets. They're great ramp, color fixing ramp that also can draw you cards. I think that's really powerful. And I got all 3 of the Lockets we can have from Mardu in this deck. So we got Rakdos Locket, we got the Orzhov Locket, exact same thing, except it's black-white. And we have Boros Locket, again, the exact same thing, except it's red-white. Next we have Thran Dynamo, 4 mana for an artifact that taps to add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. And so this card is really good. It goes in a lot of decks, but I am going to take it out as soon as I get Smothering Tithe in the mail. Next we have Quicksilver Amulet, 4 mana for an artifact that says you can pay 4 and tap it, and you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is like our extra little Kaalia of the Vast here that can put any creature card from our hand onto the battlefield. Pretty excellent in any creature heavy deck, especially ones with huge creatures like we have. Next we have Tomb of the Guild Pact, 5 mana for an artifact that says whenever you cast a multicolored spell, draw a card. And you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So mostly this is just going to tap to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool. And, you know, hopefully if we're casting a multicolored spell, we get to draw a card. Often we're going to be cheating out our multicolored spells with Kaalia, but, you know, we do have quite a bit of, sorceries and instants and enchantments that are multicolored that we can be drawing cards with Tomb of the Guild pack. So really powerful card, actually, not to be underestimated. Next, we have our series of protection spells for Kaalia and our other huge bombs that people are going to want to destroy as soon as they see them. So Champion's Helm is 3 mana for an equipment that has equip 1. An equipped creature gets +2/+2, and if the equipped creature is legendary, it has hexproof. Next, we have Whisper Silk Cloak, 3 mana for an equipment that has equip 2. An equipped creature is unblockable, and the equipped creature has Shroud, so it can't be the target of anyone's spells or abilities. Really great with Kaalia, because we want to make sure we get her attack in to make sure we're able to cheat in those other huge creatures. Next, we have Swiftfoot Boots, 2 mana for an equipment that has equip 1. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste. Next is Lightning Greaves, 2 mana for an equipment that says equip 0, and equipped creature has haste and Shroud. So remember that when your creature has Shroud, you can't put any other equipment on it. So you need to move the equipment onto another creature if you wanted to, equip it with something like, say, Whisper Silk Cloak, But then when it's equipped with Whisper Silk Cloak, it can't be equipped with Lightning Greaves, so it's almost impossible to get both of these on a creature at the same time. Next, we have Dark Steel Plate, 3 mana for an equipment that is indestructible. It is equipped for 2, and it gives the equipped creature indestructible. So yeah, they can't blow it up or the creature up. They need to exile them. Next we have, oh my goodness, yep, I'm still running it. Sorry, I didn't take it out. It's Armageddon, 3 and a white. It says destroy all lands. It's a sorcery. So Armageddon is another win condition. It's literally just like Sire of Insanity in that if we play this at the right time, we are basically just winning the game. So definitely with Armageddon, even more than Sire of Insanity, when I play this card, I say, okay, it looks like I'm pretty much going to win the game right here. You need to soften it up because everyone's going to hate you for sure. And not surprising, you can't blame them for it. You blowing up all their lands, you're basically saying you don't get to play the game anymore. You're back to square one, which is really getting everyone behind unless they happen to have a billion mono rocks or something. So Armageddon, if we got, several angels, demons, and dragons on the battlefield, or maybe just like 3 or 4 demons, or even just a couple demons, I mean, if you're ahead and no one else has a better board state than you, and then you Armageddon, you're basically going to win the game from that point. Next we have Merciless Eviction, 4, a white and a black for a sorcery that says choose 1, exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, or exile all planeswalkers. This definitely goes in every single Orzhov deck there is. If you're running black-white in your deck, get yourself a Merciless Eviction. It's not an expensive card, and it really deals with any threat you need it to. Next we have Kaya's Wrath, 2 white and 2 black for a sorcery that says destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you controlled that were destroyed this way. So it gains you a little bit of life, and you board wrath. You board wipe. Next we have Whip of Erebos, 2 and 2 black for a legendary enchantment artifact, and it says creatures you control have lifelink, and you can pay 2 and 2 black and tap it to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So you can not do this, to cheat out a creature to get Liliana's contract to work. What's really important about Whip of Erebos is that it gives all our creatures lifelink, which, we don't have any other way to do in the deck. There are some creatures that can gain its life in the deck, like, Krav, the Unredeemed, for example. But for the most part, Whip of Erebos is our life gain strategy in the deck. And, I mean, with our huge creatures, this can be gaining us tons of life every turn. Really great with Kaalia of the Vast. Next we have Fervor, 2 and a red for an enchantment that gives all of our creatures haste, which is most important for Kaalia of the Vast herself, so you can attack with her right away and cheat out another creature right away, which is also going to be attacking. Really sweet. Fervor. Next we have Sunforger, 3 mana for an equipment that says equipped creature gets +4/+0. It has equip for 3, but most important, you can pay a red and a white and unattach Sunforger, which normally, you can't just unattach an equipment from something. You need to reattach it to another creature, but with Sunforger, you can just unattach it for a red and a white, and then you search your library for a red or white instant card with converted mana cost 4 or less, and cast that card without paying its mana cost, and then shuffle your library. So this is our little toolbox in an equipment. So next we have our instant spells, 7 in total, all of which can be tutored for and cast instantly with Sunforger as long as you have it equipped and you unequip it. So Sunforger I would recommend for any Boros colored deck. Any Boros colored deck. And even if you don't run instants, put instants in the deck. Instants are really powerful. And as you can see coming up next, we have a nice little toolbox of instants that we can get out with Sunforger. So, Dawn Charm is 1 and a white, and it says, choose 1. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn, or regenerate target creature, or counter target spell that targets you. So, this is a fog effect, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Probably the most common use that we'll use this card for. But also regenerating Kaalia of the Vast is really important for our deck. And, maybe countering a spell that targets us is going to also maybe protect our team, or maybe just save us from, dying. Next, we got Orim's Chant, 1 white for an instant that has Kicker for 1 white, so you can pay an additional white as you play the spell. And it says target player can't play spells this turn, and if you paid the kicker cost, creatures can't attack this turn either. So this is also like a fog, because it's going to prevent your opponent from attacking you at all. And it also stops anyone from storming off, from pulling off an ultimate combo. If you see that person with that Sidisi, Undead Vizier deck, that's just tutoring up the exact cards they need, and they're going to storm off with Aetherflux Reservoir or something. You cast Orim's Chant, you say you don't get to cast anything this turn, which another version of this card is Silence. There's also Abeyance. There's several versions of these cards. They're all really powerful. I recommend them all for any white deck. Next we got Teferi's Protection, 2 and a white for an instant that says until your next turn, your life total can't change and you have protection from everything, and all permanents you control phase out. So while they're phased out, they're treated as though they don't exist, and they phase in before you untap during your untap step, and then you exile Teferi's Protection. So this even protects your tokens, which is really sweet, because they don't get exiled, they don't die, they're just treated as though they don't exist, but they still do exist. So this saves all your tokens, it saves you and all of your permanents. So if you're about to Armageddon, for example, play that Teferi's Protection on the stack after Armageddon, and then you're going to save all of your permanents, and Armageddon's just going to kill everyone else's lands. Or, saves you from any board wipes. Teferi's Protection will only save you once. It's going to get exiled after you cast it. So after you play Teferi's Protection, you better hope that you're able to, come out ahead and not have your opponent just to kill you again the next turn around. I will say also, I really hope Wizards of the Coast reprints Teferi's Protection. I don't know why they haven't yet. It's just... it's up to $33 right now on TCG Players. It is like the most powerful white instant spell probably in the Commander format. I'm no expert, but I'll say it is extremely powerful. It's a fog. It saves all your creatures. It saves your life total. Nobody can mess with you at all. You have protection from everything. It's just ridiculous. And they've only printed it once in the Vampire deck. What's with the thing with Teferi and Edgar Markov? I don't know, but yeah, it's only been printed in the Edgar Markov deck, so that's kind of weird. So I hope they reprint it and give us all a chance to have affordable Teferi's Protection. Next we have Bedevil, 2 black and a red for another instant, which says destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Really great card from the new Ravnica Allegiance set. Next we have Mortify, 1, a black and a white for an instant that says destroy target, creature, or enchantment. And I believe, nope, there's one more. Utter End, 2, a white and a black for an instant that says exile target non-land permanent. And that is all of our, no, oh my gosh, we got one other one. Return to Dust, 2 and 2 white for an instant. Remove target artifact or enchantment from the game. If you played this spell during your main phase, you may remove up to 1 other target artifact or enchantment from the game. Okay. And yep, that's it for our instance that we can search up with Sunforger. But as you can see, that is a great deal of nice options there for us to deal with pretty much any situation as long as we can get Sunforger out. Alright, next we have Demonic Tutor, which is 1 and a black for a sorcery. Search your library for any card and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library afterwards. So, yeah, great to have tutors in any deck. I don't got too many in this deck because I needed room for other things. And finally, on to the lands. So we have 38 lands in the deck, but our first land here doesn't even tap for mana. It's Glacial Chasm. It says cumulative upkeep 2 life. So on your upkeep after the turn you played this, you have to pay 2 life or sacrifice it. On your upkeep after that, you have to pay 4 life or sacrifice it. On your upkeep after that, you gotta pay 6 life or sacrifice it, and so on. And when Glacial Chasm comes into play, you have to sacrifice a land. And you can't attack. I know this all sounds really bad, but all damage dealt to you is reduced to 0. That's the important thing. This will save you in Commander. And when you're playing Kaalia of the Vast, one of the most hated commanders in the format, like I said, people are going to be attacking you from the get-go. They're going to be like, oh, we better attack Kaalia before she starts going off. This is even before you've started going off, you know, because they know what's coming, you know. So Glacial Chasm, when you think about paying 2, 4, 6 life, that's really nothing compared to a situation where all 3 other players are attacking you. I mean, they could be dealing you 20, 30 life. They could just kill you completely in one turn around the table. So Glacial Chasm will save you. I put it in absolutely any deck where I'm going to be hated on. And, you know, paying that life is definitely no big deal when you got lifelink from something like Whip of Erebos. You know, just paying 4, 6, 8 life a turn, again, is absolutely nothing compared to 3 other players attacking you with all their creatures. That they could just, I mean, they could deal you 100 damage in one turn easily. No big deal. When it's late enough in a game, you know, we're playing a late game format, people get armies in this format, and yeah, they can take you out. So next we have Cascading Cataracts, which is a land that's indestructible. It taps to add a colorless mana to your mana pool, or you can pay 5 and tap it to add 5 mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool. So nice little mana fixing, but most of all, this is just an indestructible land which isn't going to be affected by Armageddon. So hopefully we can have this out when we Armageddon, and we'll still have a land or 2 out. Same thing with Darksteel Citadel. It's an artifact land that's indestructible, taps to add a colorless to your mana pool. Next we have Hall of the Bandit Lord, which is a legendary land that comes into play tapped, and you can tap it and pay 3 life to add 1 mana to your mana pool. And if that mana is spent on a creature spell, that creature has haste. So 3 life is, you know, a bit much, but honestly, the ability to give Kaalia of the Vast haste is huge in this game. You know, so it's not a bad deal when you're giving Kaalia of the Vast haste. Absolutely. Next we have Reliquary Tower, which is a land that says you have no maximum hand size, and it taps to add a colorless mana to your mana pool. Goes in pretty much every deck because, you know, people are running Jin Gitaxias out there, and if they do and you have Reliquary Tower, you won't have to discard your whole hand. Next we have Flamekin Village, which is a land that enters tapped unless you reveal an elemental card from your hand, which I don't think we have any elemental deck, any elemental cards in the deck at all. So Flamekin Village is pretty much going to always enter tapped in this deck. It taps to add a red mana to your mana pool, but what's really important is you can pay a red and tap it, and target creature gains haste until the end of the turn. Again, give Kaalia haste. Next we have Bajuka Bog. Enters tapped, taps to add a black to your mana pool, and when it enters the battlefield, you exile all cards from target player's graveyard. really cheap card, really effective card, goes in any deck with black. If you don't own one, buy them now. They're not expensive. Next, we have Temple of Malice, which is my only scry land in the deck. It enters the battlefield tapped, and when you do, you get to scry one. So you look at the top card of your library, and you may put that card on the bottom or top, and it taps for a black or red mana. Next, we have our cycling lands. So these are lands that you can pay the cycling cost to discard this card and draw a card. And you would do this if you're already mana flooded. You know, if you already have too many lands and you draw a cycling land, you can just pay one and discard it and draw a different card. So Secluded Steppe enters tapped. It taps to add a white, or you can cycle it for one white. Barren Moor enters tapped, taps to add a black, or you can cycle it away for one black. Forgotten Cave enters tapped, taps to add a red, or you can cycle it away for one red. Next we have Command Tower, which should go in pretty much any multicolored commander deck ever. It taps to add 1 mana to our mana pool of any color in our commander's color identity. Yeah. Next we have Bloodstained Mire. You tap it and pay 1 life, and Bloodstained Mire gets sacrificed, and you search your library for a swamp or mountain card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So, some non-basic swamps and mountains we can get are Sacred Foundry, which is a shock land that enters tapped unless you pay 2 life. It's a mountain plains. Next we have Blood Crypt, a swamp mountain that again enters tapped unless you pay 2 life, and it taps to add a black or red. Next we have Godless Shrine, which taps to add a white or black because it's a plain swamp, and it enters tapped unless you pay 2 life. And our final non-basic swamp mountain is Smoldering Marsh, which enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Next we have Isolated Chapel, which enters tapped unless you control a plains or an island, and it taps to add a white or black. Clifftop Retreat enters tapped unless you control a mountain or a plains, and it taps to add a red or a white. Dragon Skull Summit enters tapped unless you control a swamp or a mountain, and it taps to add a black or a red. And finally, we have Shadowblood Ridge, which I have the French version, Contreforce de Ombrasang. So this is basically a signet on a land, so you can pay 1 and tap it to add both a red and black to your mana pool. And we have Nomad Outpost, enters tapped, taps to add a red, white, or black to your mana pool. We have Shinka, the Blood-Soaked Keep, a legendary land that taps to add a red mana to your mana pool, or you can pay a red and tap it, and target legendary creature gains first strike until the end of the turn. I decided it was a good place for it. Yeah, why not? It doesn't enter tapped. These legendary lands, there's one of them for each color, so check them out. They all do something pretty cool. Not bad. We have Windbrisk Heights, which is a hideaway land. So this enters the battlefield tapped. When it does, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile one of them face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library. It taps to add 1 white, or you can pay a white and tap it, and you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if you attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn. So again, you have to declare all 3 of those creatures as attackers in order for this to work, but if you do, you get to cast another spell for free, or for just 1 white and tapping Windbrisk Kite, that is. So not exactly free, but for much cheaper than you normally would with a huge demon deck. And finally, we have our basic lands. So we have 4 plains. We have 6 swamps. 3, 4, 5, 6, and finally 3 mountains. 1, 2, a 3, and that brings us to the end of our Kaalia of the Vast deck tech video. I really hope you enjoyed it because I love this deck and it will win you games. If you're having trouble winning games, play Kaalia of the Vast. It works great. So, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button or that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Helps out a lot. Well, this is Eric from Bane Alley Magic signing off. Until next time, take care. Take it easy.